Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Georgia from the Fashion for Good team. I'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to join the webinar. So you sit tight and just wait a few minutes before we kick off. We'll just give everyone a few minutes to get online.
Wow, so many people.
Thanks everyone for joining today. We're just going to wait a couple more minutes till everyone's had a chance to get online, and then we will kick off. Hi, Mariella from Argentina. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Just wait a few more minutes before give everyone a chance to get logged in, and then we will kick off. Hi, Jade from Portugal as well. Welcome. We've got someone from India, someone from Cologne. Great. Someone from Australia. Amazing.
Wow, that's so far away.
That's great. I'm from Tel Aviv, from Paris, Switzerland, Austria, fantastic. Barcelona, Amsterdam, fantastic. We like to see a local there too. Brazil as well. Okay. So I think we are going to get started, and then hopefully people can dial in as and when they join. So hi everyone, I'm Georgia from the Fashion for Good team, coming to you from London. Thanks for tuning in to our Digital Futures Taking Fashion Online. I hope everyone's healthy and well and doing as best as they can in the current situation. Currently we have over 200 people with us today, and hopefully more joining. We usually host our events in person in our headquarters in Amsterdam. And what we typically do at the beginning of these sessions is to check with the audience to see who's in the room. So if you don't mind, we're going to do a quick poll. And if there aren't any technical hiccups, this should pop up on your screen now. So I can't vote, but please get voting now. Okay. Thank you. So can we see the results of that? Will they pop up? Okay, hopefully in a minute. So I'm pleased to welcome Amber Slooten, the co-founder of the Fabricant. And before we kick off, I wanted to give a quick background about Fashion for Good. Okay, it's just come up, hang on a second. So we have 33% are students, 19% are designers, 15% are working for a brand, and then we have some who are consultants, a couple who are working for a manufacturer, and some who are just interested in fashion, digital design, and sustainability. So a really broad mix today, Amber, which is exciting. So looking forward to getting into the Q&A in a bit. Before we dive into our Q&A with Amber, I'm just going to give you a quick background about Fashion for Good. This may be familiar to some, but new to others, so bear with me. Fashion for Good is a global initiative set up to connect innovators and industry to drive commercial adoption of sustainable solutions at every stage of the supply chain. Over the past 3 years, we've scouted over 2,000 startups from around the world and supported over 90 of them via our accelerator and scaling programs. We're really focused on supporting these innovators and enabling strategic opportunities, such as pilot projects, with the aim of scaling them up for widespread adoption in the fashion industry. And we do this by working closely with our 18 corporate partners to make this happen. COVID-19 and the ripple effect of the lockdown on the fashion supply chain has highlighted 3 key areas that require immediate action. One is stock management, one is supply chain transformation, and one is digital acceleration. We'll be publishing a series of articles on each of these topics in the coming weeks, but in this Q&A, we'll be focusing on digital fashion. So now to get to the Fabricant. The Fabricant, we're in batch 6 of our accelerator program, and today we'll be talking to Amber about digital fashion, its link to sustainability, as well as how digital tools can be used to transform the way you design, make, and own your clothes. We've collected quite a few questions prior to this session, but if you have any during, please do use the Zoom Q&A feature at the bottom, and we'll do our best to get them addressed. We've integrated as many as we can already, but yeah, always tricky to get through everything. So to kick off, Amber, can you tell us a bit about the Fabricant and your role within the team?
Sure. So thank you so much for having us. It's just fantastic to be able to do this over a digital format. So I'm just going to share my screen so you guys can see a little bit of visuals on the background. Hope that works.
Yeah, I can see it.
Perfect. So so the Fabricant is a digital fashion house. We do not touch any physical clothing. All of our collections are always digital and never ever physical, because we believe that there's enough clothes in this world, and that we need to think about the future. And with COVID-19, it's been a really interesting journey, to say the least, and to see that digital fashion is actually taking off right now because there is no other choice. That is very interesting. My role within the Fabricant is I'm the creative director, so this means that I am in charge of anything creative related, but also anything to do with designing digital fashion, designing digitally, in charge of the teams that work with digital fashion design and create the digital garments. And basically, we try to really inspire the industry to move forward into this new digital landscape because it's so extremely exciting. And we really believe that digital is the future, and that it, in a sense, it also doesn't waste anything but data. And that is quite an interesting subject, especially in these times. So yeah, I'm just gonna skip a bit through some of the images that we create. So basically, we created all of this without even touching a piece of fabric, and even having to go to any place in order to shoot this, or we don't use any models. This is all computer generated. Oh.
So if you were going to show us how it works from scratch, what would be the kind of first steps that you would start to do when you're building a new digital only garment?
Yeah, it's a very nice one. Usually how I work is there's ideas, there's inspiration, and there's things coming, but then after that it's basically going into the software and going crazy. It's like sculpting. So the interesting thing is, it's a very different way of working than you would normally design. I can show a bit within Clothes 3D or what the software that I'm using, what's going on or how that looks. Maybe it's
yeah,
nice
that would be
see.
Really good. I think it's cool to see how you begin the process.
Yeah, I can show you a little bit of. So I have one file open, which is basically, let's see. It's still here. Oh. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So basically this is, you guys see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is basically one of my files. I just have it open right here. So what it looks like is you have the 2D patterns, which is usually what you always have, how you actually cut it out of the fabric. That's how it starts. And you can basically create any type of shape, anything you want without having to touch fabric. So I've been schooled traditionally as a fashion designer. So my background is completely like I've learned how to sew. I used patterns. I used anything that was needed to create a physical garment. And I know how to construct these. So for me, creating garments in 3D is like, it's a whole different story, but it does have a lot of the same things going on. So there's baselines in the patterns, there's things going on, but then here you can very easily see what it looks like and drapes like in this world, in this sort of digital environment. And what I love about this is that there is so many options that you can take. You can instantly, this is one of the designs for the fluid collection. You can basically change the color with a click of a button. You can do anything you like in this new environment. And for me as a designer, this was a huge amount of freedom that I came across, because I could be in control. I remember struggling in school with not being able to go to the fabric store in the middle of the night and running out of fabric. The same is true for like when you cannot get your samples from the factory and you're like, how am I going to sell this garment? With digital, you don't have that problem. So the most amazing thing is that you basically can create out of nothing. You can create a design which you like. I mean, I can show also a little bit of a demonstration maybe of what it looks like when you create something.
Yeah, that would be great.
Just make a new file. So usually it starts with an avatar, which is just your avatar. It's a basic shape. You can choose anything you like. And I'm using Clo 3D at the moment, but this can count for any 3D fashion software that you would like to use. So I'm not necessarily bound by tools, but it's very nice to see that you can do anything and you can use any software you like. So basically when I draw here in the 2D environment, it will appear immediately in my 3D environment. It takes some time to getting used to these tools, but it's actually quite easy to use. And you can basically put the fabric anywhere you like. I'm just going to simply draw a shape, which can be my neckline, for instance. It's very simple, guys. I just want to really show you the power of what it can do. And basically, you're able to quite easily create a shape. If I now drop this, for instance, this means I'm simulating.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, you can see that the fabric drops. And if I now think, oh, actually, I'm not that happy with the shape, I can adjust it, making it longer, maybe on the back, making it longer. For instance, sewing it together to create a dress. Like, I'm completely in control over this. I can, like, it looks quite slow on the screen, but it's actually really fast if you're working on the computer. So it's a real-time simulation, which means that it's so quick to make adjustments. If you feel like you want to create all kinds of different shapes, it's quite easy to do it. And I see right now, for instance, it's amazing with the amount of freedom that you get from this. And I remember as a designer, when I saw this for the first time, I was like, oh my God, how is it possible that a computer can generate this type of, movement in the fabric? And
so it's really about like getting started, just playing around, seeing what the material can do, and seeing what the software has to offer. Someone asked what the software was, so just to quick recap, this is Clo that Amber is using, but there are other softwares available out there.
It can be anything. Like I can show you as well. Like, the thing is, you have so much freedom in colors, in anything that you would like to create. So let's say I want to have this kind of dress, and I can use all kinds of different fabrics. So here I can say I would love to have a leather that's very stiff. Mm-hmm. It gives me a completely different feeling than when I click, for instance, a silk chiffon. It's giving an immediate, like, different drape, and I can do this for any type of fabric, but I can also very easily choose, for instance, I would love for it to look like a satin, or maybe velvet, or any type of material that you wish for, long for, leather, metal, even. Well, there's the craziest thing.
Opens up a whole new wealth of opportunity to play around with different materials and looks and styles, and different sizes as well, in terms of like what the model looks like, in a way that perhaps you couldn't in the conventional design process.
Completely.
So if the Fabricant, I've seen it written that the Fabricant is a digital fashion house. What does that actually mean? Like, what is a digital fashion house, and how does it operate?
Yeah, so basically, how we operate is we are actually in between the fashion industry and in between the fashion industry and sort of the 3D industry. So we operate in a world that exists in between these two, which means that we take from both these worlds what we think works really well. Within the 3D environment or 3D industry, you have a lot of companies that work with very good setup pipelines, which means that you have a system where you can put in your inputs and you can basically create any type of 3D model in a very convenient way. And with fashion companies, obviously it's all about identity, beauty, all these kind of things. And within sole 3D companies, it's less about that. So we really saw a huge opportunity between the fashion world, which is very physical, non-digital, and the 3D industry, gaming industry. We felt there was a bit of a disconnect because in a sense, you know, we live all of our lives online. If you can see now, it's even more because of COVID-19, we're all behind our computer screens. So we have a huge amount of digital life that we are living. And for me, it was a bit crazy how we were still so physical in fashion and how it wasn't really taking shape in a digital realm. Mm-hmm. And what a digital fashion house is basically we create this new narrative that takes fashion into this new world, this new realm, digital realm, where we can create anything. We are in control of the light. I mean, the first time I saw that I was in control of the sunlight, I mean, I was like, sun up, sun down. I was like, what? This is insane.
Make your perfect landscape.
Yeah, you can basically create any type of world you want. It's a whole new narrative. And we really believe that we're not a traditional fashion house in that sense, because we do make collections, but we also create experiences. We help brands forward. So there's a lot of different things that we do. We create videos. There's so many things that you can do. I'm just going to show you one more thing. This is quite nice. I can show you that she's going to walk in the background, because that's always my favorite option.
And quickly, while we're on this, someone asked if the fabric is changing shape to fit the avatar, and if you can also change the shape of the avatar. So perhaps you can briefly touch on that before we move on to the next questions.
Yeah, you can create any type of avatar that you like. If you want to create an avatar, like it is good to use different software for that. So basically this avatar is created in DAZ 3D. It's DAZ 3D, which is for us one of the best softwares to I think for us it's one of the best softwares to use because it really creates a realistic human model, and we think that's very important to have a realistic human body. But you can create them in Clo3D. A lot of digital fashion software have their own avatar creation tool, and you can set in the measurements that you like yourself for any type of model. So for us, as a Fabricant, we want to push out an image of that any body is welcome. So basically, we try to always work with, for a project we did with Vice, for instance, we worked with a lot of different influencers with a lot of different body shapes. Yeah. And we modeled their body shapes. I can show it later in the presentation. We modeled their body shapes. So it's like a whole new, you can create any type of body that you like. There's no limitations in that sense.
Okay, great. And that was Clo, and then and what was the avatar software that you used?
So this is coming from DAZ 3D.
DAZ 3D. Cool.
Yeah, that's DAZ 3D.
We can share a link as well in the comments too.
Yeah.
So let's now think about if you can explore what the role between digital fashion and sustainability is, and what role you see digital fashion playing in transforming the industry.
Yeah, this is huge. This is huge because so many samples are still being created physically. We need to, there's a sample being created, designed. It needs to come from the factory. Then it needs to come back to the fashion brand. They need to check if it's okay, if it's all right, if it looks good, fitting. Then it needs to go back, and it can go back and forth up to 5 times, maybe even more. All these samples that are being created is all waste. And the same goes for all of the clothes that are samples collections that are basically not sold because they have to be shipped to the buyers, but usually they end up in sample sales, which is a very big problem because brands just don't know how to get rid of them in a good way, and it devalues your brand as well. If you go for a sample sale, it doesn't really make you look like, you know, you're a high-end brand. And that's why also a lot of brands struggle with the whole overstock and the fact that they cannot get rid of all of the garments that they have. So firstly, I would say digital sampling would enable a huge amount of waste reduction. So you can really take these sample collections to the next level, and you're able to sort of communicate on a distance because in a sense, as designers, you already have a view of how this looks. Also, if you see this garment in motion, you have an idea of what the design will look like without ever having to have made it in real life. So for fashion brands, that would already work so well to use this technique to sample digitally. The next step would be to actually wear digital clothes, which is a step beyond like the next thing, which is going to be like the fact that we have a digital body or a digital representation of our body, and then we will be able to wear clothes in the digital space instead of in the physical world. And for sustainability, this is also a very good idea because we're struggling a lot with too many clothes in this world. If you look at, you know, I think for the coming 50 years, we're still able to dress ourselves with the amount of clothes that are on the planet right now. So we don't need more clothes. And for us, it is very interesting how identity is related to clothes and how we want to express ourselves as human beings, because that's a human need, like expressing yourself. And we believe that this should not have to impact the planet. So how can we create experiences where people are still able to dress themselves and express themselves without having to like create so many new looks all the time? We really believe in this idea of bringing the fashion to the masses, but not in a sense that it will pollute the earth like we've been doing the past 20 years or maybe even more.
No, it's really interesting. And I think, as you say, there's this option for stimulating change within the kind of design, prototyping, sample selling, virtual showroom that would embed itself like business to business within existing brands, and then thinking about actually rethinking the concept of ownership for us as consumers or the public, and really being playful around our identity and what it means to express ourselves, especially through these new online communities. But perhaps to play devil's advocate, how do you think the digital fashion might impact the job security of workers in the supply chain if we're moving to this more digital supply chain and production process?
Yeah, in a sense, you know, with this whole, with innovation, always there is things that are being changed, and there's change being made in the industry. I just really hope that, because that side of the industry, the workers being treated like shit, like that's just something that is not good anyway. So we need to entirely rethink the whole system. And I really believe that innovation does not have to be stuck by the fact that we've always done it in this certain way. We need to look beyond systems that no longer work. And I feel like there is a lot of even interest and willingness also of manufacturers to learn these new types of technologies, because what I see really happening is that a lot of manufacturers are actually already using software, and they want to educate the brands to use it as well. So sometimes it even goes the other way around. And I think innovation should not be stopped by old patterns. I think it should be reinvented and not being held back by things that we've always done the same way. And it's so promising. It's better for everybody. That's what I think.
Yeah, and as you touched on, it's about creating opportunities for people to upskill themselves, to work with digital tools, and having a better infrastructure for people working in this supply chain, throughout the supply chain.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps you can touch on, we've got a question that's around the role that the Fabricant could play in regards to the gaming industry. So perhaps it'd be interesting if you could talk about like how things like your digital marketplace would plug into existing social media and gaming platforms.
Yeah, so what is very interesting is we believe that our digital identity will only grow bigger. And what we would love to become is the one-stop place where you will curate your digital identity. So you will be able to come to a platform, dress your digital self, and be very happy with your expression of yourself, and then move on to all of these different platforms. So whether it be whatever digital platform you want to go into, you will have your look covered and styled and whatever you want to create, which is now it's a very far-fetched idea, but we believe that the digital spaces are going to become more important, and that you still have to really, in a sense, be able to control your digital identity. And we would love to see that you would be able to wear the same dress to your Fortnite as to whatever place you want to go on. Maybe you want to have a 2D version that you can use for LinkedIn, or there's some, you want to have a VR space talk and you want to look good. Like, all of these platforms need digital dressing, and usually within games there's a set amount of products. But if you look at Fortnite, like, I don't know if any of you saw the Travis Scott concert in Fortnite a while back. If you haven't, I definitely recommend. It's an incredible thing to watch. It's taking concerts to a whole nother level in this sort of metaverse of digital. And all of the people that are going to the concert are actually wearing merchandise of Travis Scott, for instance. And it's been sold in the game itself, or people can wear it. So there's this huge opportunity in this market, and a lot of fashion brands don't realize how much opportunity there is to take in order for people to want to look good in digital space. Like, people spend so much money within games to look interesting or look nice, or have these objects. So I think there's a huge opportunity to combine the two.
And bring together the different digital identities that you have online to really create quite a expression-full and emotional marketplace. I think it's really interesting. And then perhaps you can talk about as well what role the Fabricant can play in the future of fashion shows. How do you think that might benefit designers, or how can things like digital fashion interact with the existing stores and showrooms? So I suppose, how do we interact and bring together the physical and digital?
Yeah, I think it's still also a very big question. I'll go back to this PowerPoint so I can share some more images of what we've done. I feel like, right now to combine the digital and the physical is still kind of quite far away, because we don't know what is going to happen to the whole crisis, and what's going to go, and how many times we can go back to the store again. I see people coming back to the stores. That's nice, but I feel like the whole sense of fashion show has been, in a sense, also something that is old-fashioned. The way we share these looks for the buyers, the way we kind of interact with it. I think we need to find new ways in order to present clothes. There can be so much more creativity when you create this digital environment. And I think these showrooms can exist entirely virtual, because the emotion that you feel when you look at something like this is just as relevant as when you look at it online or on Instagram, or even this is one of our dresses. It's been shared millions of times on Instagram, while it never existed in real life. So with digital space being here, what does it even matter if you don't have physical spaces anymore in order to show it? You can even produce on demand, for instance. So if many people would have loved this look, we could have decided to actually create it and ship it. But this requires a whole sort of mindset shift from the perspective where we push all of the clothes onto the people. So it's more and more collections. People need to buy more. They need to consume more. And, into this new system where we basically inspire people and see if they would want to have something, and then after that we would want to create it or make it. And for us, it would not be created, because we don't create any physical garments. We would want people to wear it digitally. But we really believe in this new mindset shift, and we really hope that's going to change a lot in the fashion industry.
And so then I think quite an interesting question that's come up is around this concept of ownership. So I think it'd be great if you could touch on how it works in terms of like intellectual property rights, and then perhaps how, as a designer, you can monetize your digital clothing.
Yeah, so how we're thinking about this right now is in this digital space where we're creating this new experience. We basically would love to also experiment with new business models. Maybe you want to, something like blockchain is a very interesting one in this, because you can create a very unique piece that is only tied to a code that is only tied to you. So you can own it yourself. But what blockchain also allows for is that you, for instance, could own pieces of a digital look. So if you want to own the sleeve of one of our looks, it is also possible, because in a sense, digital ownership does not have to do with a physical product. So you don't have to take it apart, but you can have co-owners of the same object. It can become a collectible. It can become worth more over time. So there's all these interesting things that you can do. You can trade it. You can collect it. It's like an endless thing. And the nice thing about it is that with this, you have like endless possibilities of sharing it online as well and wearing it online as well. And let me see if I can find the dress that we sold. See.
So then people are asked, one person's asked, how does the Fabricant make money? What's the business model? So the business model is, I suppose it varies depending on the different digital solutions, but from your perspective would be that you're helping create this whole story and narrative around the clothes and really bringing it to life in a very dynamic way that perhaps you wouldn't get from just designing a product in Clo or something like that. So it's your role as the Fabricant is really as this like storytelling piece as well, outside of just creating the products.
Completely. And I feel like we have different business models because we are also exploring what it means to be a digital fashion house. So we create our own clothes, so our own collections. This is one of our couture pieces that was auctioned off last year in May, so it was a year ago. We auctioned this for $9,500, but this was a one-stop thing that we wanted to prove that there's actually value for digital garments. So it's really interesting that you're basically able to create that sort of like a look and emotion towards a digital product because someone actually bought it for $9,500. But our other business model is basically helping brands to move into this digital space. So we create videos for them and we help them digitize and also rethink their entire process. So that's the whole idea. That's our other business model. And the newest business model is where we want to sell digital clothes. So we want to have people be able to wear them on our platform. So that's very interesting. Sorry.
It's okay. Right. Someone wants to get a hold of you. We'll just let Amber get the door. So we've got about 10 minutes left, so keep sending through your questions. I'm working through them and trying to bunch them together where possible. I think one interesting one is really around what's the clear or the most common business use case where the technology is used. So I think obviously the Fabricant, as you just said, is this kind of overarching piece that you're supporting the brands with. But I think a lot of people are asking, how do you actually become a 3D designer? Like, how can this be easily implemented within an existing brand? So perhaps you can touch on some of the like early wins and easy next steps for someone who wants to move into this space, both as a brand and as a designer.
Yeah, I think what is the most important thing is just to start and just to start playing around with it. How I discovered this was basically I fell in love with it and I just started using it, and it can be just a small thing that you always wanted to create or that you always wanted to do, and then try to create that in 3D in the 3D environment. There's so many resources online as designers being, right? So many resources online where you can watch these videos, you can teach yourself how to use it or learn it from different people. There's a huge network of people that are able to support you online, like within Clo 3D, for instance. There's a huge network, or any different software. But we, for instance, also have a Facebook group where you can ask a lot of questions on if you're a new young designer working with the software, or if you are already within a company and you're trying to teach yourself how to use it, you know, all these things are you're able to share in this online environment. And I think the most important thing is just to start small, and don't entirely like rethink the entire process yet, but first start small and see how you can use it to your benefits and actually make your process faster. At first it will become slower, I can tell you, but that's not like, you know, in a sense, I feel like that shouldn't stop you, because it's going to make things much faster. And then the other end, I mean, if you can see like how you can change the fabrics, how you can change the colors, all these things for designers are of course amazing tools to use, and give you loads of freedom. And for brands, I would say make sure that you think of where 3D can really benefit your process, because there's so many implementations on how you can use it. It can be in the supply chain, it can be in the sell-in, it can be in the design process, it can be in your marketing strategy. There can be so many implementations. Before you actually sell the clothes, you can do everything in 3D. And even the clothes can even stay in the computer, and you can sell your clothes and make people wear them digitally. So there's a huge options that you can take and choose from. But you can also just say, okay, I'm just going to first do this part of the business and make that into 3D. There's a lot of brands that, for instance, first digitize their design process, and then they go into digital sell-in. And some brands also start with digital sell-in, so working with us, creating a digital sell-in process. And then they make the physical samples, or then they create like the physical garments. It's like there's so many options to take, but using 3D already a little bit in your process will be so beneficial.
And I think we see that one of our corporate partners, PVH, I think they're at like 65% of their designers are trained in 3D design, and they hope to have it 100% by the end of 2020. And they have 2 companies that sit within PVH at the moment, but are looking to kind of expand and work with other players that Stitch and Hatch that look at like 3D design and then virtual showrooms. So I think it's great to see that already the big players as well are moving into this space and really see the important role that it plays. One question that we have, which I think is interesting to touch on and does come up a lot through the conversations we have with our partners, is around like the resources used for digital fashion in terms of like servers and hardware and things like that. And a lot of people are asking if you need like a really high powered computer to use the software. So perhaps we can touch on the impact side of things briefly.
Yeah, so we've measured this actually. We've done a measurement of the impact of a digital garment and the impact of a physical garment on the environment, because of course we know very well about all of the data that's being used to create it. And the electricity and the computer power. So a lot of times you do need a very good computer in order to create this, but this is an investment because it will save you time in the end, which is right now that's always how it is with innovation. It's going to cost a lot, and then it's going to, you know, really save so much in the end. But you do need to invest in the first stage of getting a good computer, getting good hardware, because it will save you time in the end. If you have a slow computer, I can tell you, it's gonna drive you mad. So, you know, like I had to, like for me, I'm in a sense, I'm a designer, but I'm also a technologist, and I'm also quite a big nerd. So, you know, in a sense, I love to dive myself into like these new technologies, and I think it's good for any designer of the future to think about technology and how to use it in a good way, and also understand computers before you start this. It's a good thing to dive into that a bit and understand. However, it's not necessary. Like you can also just work on Clo, like because it feels like a computer game. Honestly, it's like The Sims, but then used for fashion. That's how I really experienced it. Sometimes you can really get lost in the software. It's like you have to say stop to yourself because it can become very addictive. But what I would say about the data use is we've measured the impact of a physical garment being created without the aftermath, so without the consumers actually using it, so no washing, etc.
Yeah.
And those kind of things. And the digital garment, including everything, so the computer power used and everything. And it's actually 1/10 to create a digital garment is 1/10 of the impact of a physical garment, but then not even the washing and everything and the consumer using in there as well. So it's way less. And if we use green power and a lot of different things to reduce the energy consumption, it will be much better. But we first want to stop the production of more clothes, unnecessary textile. I mean, I myself personally, if I look at things now, especially during this crisis, a lot of people start cleaning out their house. A lot of people think like, oh, hey, let's look at my closet, what's in there. And in Amsterdam, they've actually closed all of the bins to recycle garments because they cannot handle it anymore. All of the things that people are throwing out. So
yeah, same in London.
Yeah, it's completely insane. If you think about it, it's completely insane how many garments we hoard and we keep with us while we don't even need it. And in a sense, that has really also brought things to my mind. And I feel like, you know, with this digital technologies, we would still be able to have fun and express ourselves, but without that impact.
Yeah. And I think when we're talking about the inefficiencies in the design process and manufacturing process, and we have an interactive museum in Amsterdam, which obviously at the moment is unfortunately closed, but people should definitely visit if they ever find themselves there. And the space is really about, on the lower ground floor, we talk about the past. So we map out the journey of a t-shirt from design all the way through to end of use. And I think the statistic is something like 20% of material ends up on the cutting room floor during the actual manufacturing stage. So you have all of these losses throughout the supply chain that are already happening, that I think things like digital design and sampling help to address. And then we move up onto the ground floor where we talk about the present, so where we are now today. And then the top floor is the innovation lounge, where we have different artifacts from different innovators who have been in our program. And I actually think that the Fabricant will be on display in some digital form or other soon, which I think is really exciting. Perhaps you can touch a bit on Leela and what that is, and so people are aware of it.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Leela is our platform. It's our baby. We've worked on this from October onwards. We had already a lot of plans for a year long to create this. It's a digital fashion exploration zone, we call it. It's basically an identity exploration platform where you're able to dress your digital self and experiment with whatever you feel like would fit your identity. And it has been like a really big journey. Basically, these are some of the visuals of the platform, because we needed to think about, or actually rethink the entire idea that we use clothes and wear clothes and fit clothes to our bodies. And what does it mean to wear an identity, to have an identity? Is your digital body, you know, is that an extension of your identity? And what is actually the meaning of identity? This was very big questions that we tried to answer with this platform. Does this digital self feel like you or not? And it's a very interesting topic that we are currently diving into. And with Leela, we wanted to provide a place where anybody would be able to dress themselves. And with anybody, I mean two separate words, and it can be anything you want. Maybe for a day you would like to experiment what it would be like to be a man or have a non-binary body, or you know, there's a lot of different options in the virtual world that you cannot do in physical reality. Also, for instance, think about if you want to cut off your hair.
You could try it out. I'm almost getting to that stage now. My hair's getting so long.
Yeah, exactly.
During lockdown, I can see how I'd look.
It's crazy. And I mean, in the physical reality, you cut it off, and if you're not happy, you are stuck with it. But in the digital world, you can experiment with that identity, like what truly feels like would be you. And this is just some of the looks that we created. It's still like very much touching on reality, but it's taking it beyond into the next level of sort of weightless materials that are not possible in real life, prints that move, and like this is a little video of the platform and what it looks like. So we designed it together with our agency partner who designed the platform itself. And we had to really do a lot of concessions. Like, for instance, it's a beta version, so it's the first version out there. But it's a self-expression playground, and we say you can dress up your multiple selves in the digital world. And we wanted to provide that people the fluid identity. So not being stuck to one identity, but basically having the fluidity to change your identity within the click of a button. And yeah, it's so made for...
Quickly on that, do we need, I'm worried about time. I hope everyone doesn't mind if we run over by maybe 5 minutes. I think there's some other interesting questions before we wrap up. We've got a couple of questions around whether you need an avatar to have this, like to own digital products, and if you do, how do you get one? And then I think someone else mentioned that in some of the images you actually don't have models at all. So can you also explore the role of avatars, and also around like this concept of like actually even needing a physical person within the clothes to show that? That'd be great.
Yeah, I have one example I want to show you guys. It's here. Yeah, this is the one. Basically, this entire video is like created without an avatar. You don't need an avatar to show fashion. The reactions we got from this garment, for instance, was that people really saw themselves in the garment because there was no representation of a model. So usually when you see a model walking on the catwalk, you think, oh, I'm not that skinny, or I don't have that skin color, so I cannot relate to this person, or I'm not that beautiful, or whatever. Or maybe you think you're way more beautiful. That's also possible. But like there's like a disconnection when you see a model wearing the clothes. And with this project, people actually said that they saw themselves wearing it because it was more of an interaction, and you don't necessarily see a representation. But I do think that in a sense, you need a kind of a digital body in the digital space. But it really depends on where you want to take it, because maybe in the future we will be able to wear digital clothes around us without needing to have a screen, you know, or without needing to have a digital space to wear it, because our digital world and our physical world will collide more, and we will be able to see digital objects around us. You know, you don't know how these things will develop, but there's a big like future vision regarding this, that we're going to move away from screens and it's going to be more integrated. But you don't necessarily need an avatar to show the clothes. However, you do need an avatar to always fit the clothes, because in a sense there is an avatar inside here. We just put it on invisible, for instance. Yeah. And
then very quickly before we wrap up, we're getting some questions around like what else apart from Clo you use to get the products to look like this. Is there anything else that people should be aware of when exploring the space to take it from Clo to where you are? I know there's lots of steps in between, but perhaps we can briefly touch on it before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure, of course. So we're tool agnostic, so we don't necessarily set to one tool. We use a lot of different tools to also with the people that we work with, because some people that we work with use different tools, and every project we work with different people again, and then we change our workflow. But what it comes down to is basically we use Clo 3D, some form of avatar creation tool like Dust 3D or any other software that creates avatars, and then we use any 3D software like Cinema 4D, Houdini, Maya, and then we use different render engines. So we use Redshift or Octane, any render engine that works with the software that you're using. So I would say there's always like different steps. There's the modeling that's all being done in Clo 3D. And then there's the lighting, rendering, texturing, that's all done in a different software. So that's usually done in a real 3D software, let's say. So something that you can really create this 3D world with. This is different than Clo, because Clo is quite limited, for instance. So 3D creation software is necessary to create the level of quality. This has been created, for instance, in Houdini Redshift. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, that's super useful. There are a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to, or perhaps we touched on earlier in the session. I think we'll have to look at if there's a way for us to perhaps answer some of these in another way. I think it's really great to see how engaged everyone is on this topic. Do you have any closing out words before I do a quick wrap up that you'd like to share on this topic?
I think it's really important that we take this step now. There's no better time than now. And I feel like, you know, taking a step back, looking at your entire process and rethinking that now is the time to do that and to move into a new world, a new way of working, which is essential to the future of this planet. I really believe that we still should be able to express ourselves as humans, and we should have fun with fashion. It's identity, it's beautiful, it's storytelling and everything. But I don't think we should do it the way that we've always done. I think we should take it to the next level and even create more elaborate stories with materials that you cannot even have in reality. So I really believe that now is the time to move into this new space, even if it's just a little bit, even if you're just using it just a tiny bit, it's already helping. So thinking along and just start. And of course you can always hit us up. Like, we are very open to anything, and we have the Facebook group, like I said, so you can totally join there if you have questions remaining about workflow or any type of things.
I'm a member of it. I'm not a designer, but I like seeing everyone's creations, and it's great to see how much people actually interact on there. People will post what they've been working on, and then everyone gives feedback, and I think it's a really lovely community.
We're very proud of that. We think that's super important, to work together. Also work together, that's a very important one. Use each other's resources and share knowledge, because the secrecy in the fashion industry has been there way too long, and I think moving forward we need to really share our knowledge instead of keeping it to ourselves.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Amber, for joining us today. It was great to chat through with this topic with you, and I have so many more questions that I could touch on, not just of the ones that have been shared by everyone here, but diving into this in much more detail. So thank you, and we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. And to close out, a quick mention that we have a number of upcoming events over the coming weeks. So please head to our website. I think Nicola has been very kindly sharing links into the comment section to check out our calendar. And you can also sign up to our newsletter, which we send out different events that are going on, not just Fashion for Good events, but also wider ecosystem ones, to stay up to date. We actually have our next event on Friday at 7:30 Central European time, so Dutch time, with Iris van Herpen and Vogue Netherlands, where we'll basically be doing a Q&A with her on there. So really excited about that. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us if you want any more additional information. And when we can travel again, please do come visit us at our interactive museum in Amsterdam. So thanks everyone for tuning in today, and thank you again to Amber. It was great to have you here.
And guys, if you want to try Leela, you can go to digital.fashion. I forgot to say that.
Oh, is it live? I didn't know whether it was still live.
Yeah, it's live. Guys,
okay, that's a good one. Okay, so if you want to make your a digital identity, your online persona, then Nicola, could you share the link to Leela, or we can get that? That's fantastic. So how long will it be open for?
It will be open, I think, for a week now, so people can try it. So that's and then we're going to close it again. So
okay, fabulous. So everyone gets signing up, because that's a fantastic place to play around. You have to take a picture of your face, don't you? So you actually see yourself on the model, which I think is really cool. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.